It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10. A very happy Christmas to you. Our top story. King Charles uses his Christmas message to thank medical staff who've helped him and the Princess of Wales with their cancer treatments.
I offer special heartfelt thanks to the selfless doctors and nurses who this year have supported me and other members of my family.
Also ahead, 38 people are killed but 29 survive as a passenger plane crashes in Kazakhstan. Sir Keir Starmer condemns what he calls Russia's bloody and brutal Christmas Day strikes on Ukraine, which have left 500,000 people without heating. Action over words. The Archbishop of York says the church must change following a number of abuse scandals. Sky News meets the families of Israeli hostages bringing in their second Hanukkah, the Jewish festival of light, without their loved ones. And 20 years on from the Boxing Day tsunami, a young boy found on an Indonesian beach by a Sky News team reflects on how the disaster changed his life. Plus, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages. That's coming up in our press preview from 10:30. Hello there, good evening. Merry Christmas to you. The King has used his Christmas message to express his personal gratitude to the medical staff who have supported both him and the Princess of Wales during their separate cancer treatments. King Charles offered his heartfelt thanks to the doctors and nurses, describing them as selfless. The monarch also praised the community response to the riots, which followed the fatal Southport stabbings during the summer. Our royal correspondent, Laura Bundock, reports now from Sandringham, where the King was joined by other royals for their traditional Christmas Day service.
Christmas Day at Sandringham, and this, the traditional scene. The King and Queen leaving church with the wider family. It is the one day we get a public glimpse of their private time. And the royal family were out in force. No Prince Andrew, who'd kept his promise and stayed away. But the Prince and Princess of Wales and their children took their time, talking to and thanking the crowds who'd queued for hours to show support. Health has dominated and disrupted their year, and from the King's Christmas message poignantly delivered from a hospital chapel, a significant statement.
From a personal point of view, I offer special heartfelt thanks to the selfless doctors and nurses who this year have supported me and other members of my family through the uncertainties and anxieties of illness, and have helped provide the strength, care, and comfort we have needed. I am deeply grateful, too, to all those who have offered us their own kind words of sympathy and encouragement.
Closer to home, he reflected on community cohesion following riots after the tragic Southport attack.
I felt a deep sense of pride here in the United Kingdom when, in response to anger and lawlessness in several towns this summer, communities came together, not to repeat these behaviours, but to repair. To repair not just buildings, but relationships. And, most importantly, to repair trust by listening and, through understanding, deciding how to act for the good of all.
It was a message with clear meaning and clear themes. And also a surprise for the choir, who didn't know who they'd be singing for.
We are going to be singing the carol at the end of the King's speech on Christmas Day. So the King is going to stop speaking, it's going to cut to you, baby is going to start singing.
The Christmas broadcast is always a reflection of the year, and to that, the King was open and personal. The royal family gathering here felt like a familiar moment in a year that's been anything but. His treatment continues, as does the King's determination to carry on. This year especially keen to be seen and heard. Laura Bundock, Sky News, Sandringham.
Well, to Kazakhstan now, where officials say 38 people have died after an aeroplane crashed in the city of Aktau in the west of the country. 29 people are said to have been rescued alive, some seen stumbling out of the fuselage. Well, the Azerbaijan Airlines plane was carrying 67 people from Baku in Azerbaijan, flying along the western shore of the Caspian Sea to Grozny in the Chechen area of southern Russia. It came down on the opposite shore in Kazakhstan. Russian news agencies had said it was rerouted due to fog, talked of a possible bird strike, but the flight had diverted from an area of Russia which Moscow has recently defended against Ukrainian drone attacks. Well, Sky's Amelia Harper reports now, a warning the pictures you're about to see show the plane going down, which you might find distressing.
The final terrifying seconds before disaster. A plane carrying 67 people dives to the ground in Kazakhstan. Despite the wreckage, officials say dozens of people survived. But as emergency teams assemble, the death toll reaches above 30. Survivors can be seen limping from the wreckage, dazed, bleeding, but incredibly alive. The plane was travelling from the Azerbaijani capital Baku to the Russian city of Grozny, an area recently targeted by Ukrainian drone strikes. The plane then diverts hundreds of miles over the Caspian Sea to Kazakhstan, Russian media says due to poor weather, before it looped over the city of Aktau before the crash. The majority of its passengers from Azerbaijan. Within hours, their president said this.
The
reasons for the crash are not yet known to us. There are various theories, but I believe it is premature to discuss them. The matter must be thoroughly investigated. A criminal case has been launched and the Azerbaijani public will be regularly informed about the case.
And from their hospital beds, questions too for the survivors.
When the plane crashed, my wife was sitting next to me, and I haven't seen my wife since the crash, and I don't know where she is.
And at Grozny Airport, family members desperately await news of their own. Are their loved ones alive?
I just got a photo and video that he is alive and well, walks on his own. Everything is fine.
At a regional summit in St. Petersburg, Russian President Vladimir Putin addressed the crash.
I would like to express condolences to the family of the deceased and all the injured. Let us hope for their recovery. In agreement with the President of Kazakhstan, a Russian Ministry of Emergency Situations plane with medical personnel and the necessary additional equipment on board is en route to Aktau.
For now, authorities are focused on search and recovery, but soon they'll begin the search for answers. Amelia Harper, Sky News.
Keir Starmer has condemned Russian missile strikes on Ukraine's energy grid, describing the Christmas Day bombardment as bloody and brutal. The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says more than 70 missiles and over 100 drones were used in the attack. Local authorities say at least one person was killed and 6 were injured, while around 500,000 people were left without heating in the Kharkiv region.
The infrastructure, critical infrastructure, was damage. However, multiple emergency services started renewing it right away. So many people have electricity back. 500,000 people in the region are still lacking heating, but we're sure it will be fixed.
The Archbishop of York, who will effectively take over as the leader of the Church of England next month, says the Church needs to change and, in his words, kneel in penitence. His Christmas Day sermon comes at a time of crisis for the Church, with the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, standing down following criticism of his leadership following a number of abuse scandals. Sky's Fraser Maud has this report.
After a year of criticism and controversy for the Church of England, worshippers came to York Minster rather than Canterbury Cathedral to hear a Christmas sermon. This after a damning report into the Church's handling of a serial sexual abuser led to the leader of the Church of England, Justin Welby, stepping down from his role.
Amen.
The Archbishop of York, Stephen Cottrell, due to take over the interim leadership of the church, is also facing calls to step down over allegations surrounding another priest at the centre of a sexual abuse case. Today he spoke of the church's need for humility and change.
God's church itself needs to come again to the manger and strip off her finery and kneel in penitence and adoration and be changed. This is what we learn at the manger in Bethlehem, to put the needs of others first. Those who are cold and hungry this Christmas. Those who are victims of abuse and exploitation.
Within minutes, though, there was criticism of the sermon from within the church. Helen Ann Hartley, the Bishop of Newcastle, who'd previously called for Justin Welby's resignation, said on social media about the address, "Empty words. I have no words more than that to describe their meaning." There's no doubt this has been a hugely difficult year for the Church of England, thrown into chaos amid allegations of abuse and a failure to adequately deal with them. Today, the Archbishop of York spoke of a need for change and made reference to Bob Dylan and the musical My Fair Lady in calling for action, not words. Don't just talk about justice, he said. Show me. After the service, the congregation gave their thoughts on this difficult time for the church.
Those were the appropriate words, and it's also very much a part of the Christian message that no one is perfect, we all make mistakes.
The church is about forgiveness and love.
First and foremost.
Actually, isn't that what we should be doing? Loving each other and forgiving?
Stephen Cottrell will assume temporary leadership of the church on January the 6th, ahead of what will no doubt be another challenging year as the next Archbishop of Canterbury is selected amidst the ongoing backdrop of controversy. Fraser Maud, Sky News, York.
While many people are celebrating Christmas, today also marks the first night of the Jewish holiday of Hanukkah, only the fifth time since 1900 that the two have fallen on the same day. But for the families of the Israeli hostages taken on October the 7th last year and being held by Hamas, festivities will be muted. Yisrael Bahir has been speaking to some of those who are spending a second Hanukkah without their loved ones.
It's another hollow Hanukkah for the families of Israeli hostages waiting for news of a deal. Or Levi was abducted by Hamas on October 7th. His wife was killed as he was taken, and his 3-year-old son Almog left without parents.
As you can imagine, he lost his mom, waiting for his dad. Now he's moving between the families. We do our best to keep him happy, to keep him hugged, show him support, but it won't be the same without his dad.
This was the first and last Hanukkah that Almog had with both his parents.
Or in Hebrew means light. And Hanukkah is a celebration of light. So for us it's even more symbolic. This is not political in any way. I don't hate Palestinians. I don't want people in Gaza to suffer. But in order for this to end, for both sides, the hostages must come back.
And at Hostage Square in Tel Aviv, families are demanding answers.
This is one of the longest, if not the longest, hostage crisis in the history of the modern Western world. This is unacceptable. It has to stop today.
Hopes that a deal with Hamas would be secured before Hanukkah are dashed now that the first day has come.
We're now 14 and a half months into this war, and the three top Israeli negotiators, the head of the Mossad, the head of the Shin Bet, and someone from military intelligence in the army have not heard from Netanyahu those three words, bring them home. They do not have a mandate to make a deal with Hamas, and that's why we see these negotiations dragging on.
And as Jewish people from around the world come to Jerusalem to celebrate, Many Israelis are mourning the lack of momentum at home. What are you praying for this Hanukkah?
For the release of the hostages. That's the only thing that we need. That's, I think, every Israeli, if you ask him what's the most important thing, is to see the hostages back home, regardless of our troop situation in Gaza.
In another year of war, this is a flame of faith for the families hoping to see their loved ones return. A festival of lights celebrating recovery, right when recovery is needed the most. Yusra al-Bagher, Sky News, Jerusalem.
The Taliban says Pakistani airstrikes in eastern Afghanistan have killed 46 people, mostly women and children. The Afghan government said those killed in the strikes, which hit 4 locations in Bamal, a district on the border with Pakistan, were refugees. Tensions between the two countries have been rising, with an increase in attacks, the latest this weekend, when at least 16 Pakistani soldiers were killed at a checkpoint in the country's northwest. Israel and Hamas have blamed each other for further delays on a ceasefire deal. Hamas has accused Israel of introducing new conditions relating to the withdrawal from Gaza and prisoner exchange, which it says have delayed an agreement. The Israeli government has accused Hamas of lying, reneging on understandings already reached, and continuing to complicate negotiations. A man has been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder after a car was driven onto the pavement in central London in the early hours of Christmas Day. 4 people were taken to hospital after the incident on Shaftesbury Avenue, with one said to be in a life-threatening condition. Police say the suspect is believed to have got into an altercation in a nightclub before the incident, which is not terror-related. The police watchdog is investigating after a man was shot dead by armed police in Worcestershire on Christmas Eve. Police say they spent several hours in a standoff trying to negotiate with the 39-year-old in Redditch. Officers had been called to the scene after concerns were raised for the safety of a man with a knife. Now, tomorrow marks 20 years since the Boxing Day tsunami, a disaster of catastrophic proportions which killed more than 200,000 people. One survivor, 7-year-old Martunis, was found by a Sky News team 21 days after the waves first hit on a beach as he searched for his family. He's been speaking to Ashna Hurnag about his journey and how his life has changed.
This Boxing Day marks 20 years since one of the deadliest disasters in history. It also marks one of the greatest stories of hope. Some 20 days after the tsunami hit his hometown of Banda Aceh in Indonesia, 7-year-old Martunis was found by a Sky News crew. His Portuguese football jersey swamped his frail body. He'd been wandering the beach alone for 3 weeks, sleeping among bodies and surviving on packets of noodles and puddle water.
What he find when he find the noodle that is bringing by water, they eat that noodle.
Now 27 years old, with a family of his own, he reflects on his journey.
It doesn't feel like the tsunami happened in 2004. I can't believe it's been 20 years. Maybe the time has passed too fast for me. But to forget that incident, of course, is impossible. I cannot forget the story of my journey of 21 days on that beach.
Our team took him to Save the Children, where they washed, fed and looked after him, and miraculously reunited him with his father and great-grandmother, his only surviving relatives. Phil Hooper was part of the team who found him.
When we got the phone call from Save the Children, our spirits just rose, because we had left this little 7-year-old boy suffering from malnutrition and flea bites and God knows what else, alone in hospital, and he had his father back.
A footballing career followed when Cristiano Ronaldo saw Martunis' story, and the trajectory of his life changed forever. But the memories of the disaster carry immense loss.
I became famous. It allowed me to meet with the greatest people in the world, like Ronaldo and other football players. I travelled everywhere, and I also had the opportunity to play football, so the tsunami made me famous in a way, but I am also sad because I've lost my family, including my mother and my sisters. Even now, I still do not have any photos of my mother. I only have 2 photos of my younger sister and elder sister, but I do not have my mother's photo. It's why I'm not able to remember my mother's face anymore, because I was only 7 years old at the time.
He may not be able to picture his mother's face, but he'll never forget the event that changed his life. A story of extraordinary survival. Ashna Harinag, Sky News.
Let's take a look at how Christmas has been marked around the world now. Let's go to Bethlehem first. Cardinal Pier Battista Pizzaballa, the leader of the Catholic Church in the Holy Land, led worshippers at a morning mass at the Church of the Nativity. Celebrations in the town, revered by Christians as the birthplace of Jesus, are usually attended by thousands of people from around the world. The festive lights and the giant tree, which normally decorate Manger Square, were missing, as were the usual crowds of foreign tourists. Well, hundreds of people gathered at the Vatican to hear the Pope deliver his Christmas message, where he urged talks between Ukraine and Russia. Pope Francis mentioned the Ukraine conflict directly and called for boldness to open the door to negotiation. And one of London's great festive traditions, the Christmas Serpentine Swim, took place this morning in Hyde Park. Swimmers braving the cold for the annual early morning dip, which has been taking place since 1864. Get it right. Well, plenty more coming up on Sky News. We will have all the sport, including calls from the Manchester City boss, Pep Guardiola, for a winter break for the Premier League. Who's been generous this year?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Come on, Chelsea. Upset about this already.
For our next Downing Street washout.
Love opening presents.
Is it to wear? I really like it.
The big bug catcher.
Frosty the Snowman. It's a Chelsea Football Club name.
Loudmouth, I don't know why. You ready for the election? Oh, look. Camping face. Love it. Oh.
Half the time have no idea what people are talking about.
There, you trap the bug inside.
It kind of looks a little bit like me as well.
This is very, very cool. Honestly, who thought of this?
Dad.
Cheers.
A Chelsea name it is. Happy Christmas. I would quite like it.
We've come to one of Moscow's Cold War bunkers. It was built as a top-secret command centre.
Being here really feels like you're stepping back in time. I'm Ivor Bennett, Sky's Moscow correspondent.
A show of military might and menace.
Courage, bravery and sacrifice will win the day.
It's a new subject. They'll learn about combat drones and some how to handle a Kalashnikov.
The Kremlin continues to put forward its own version of events, both present and past.
There's no mention of the fact that Russia invaded its neighbour. That's rewriting history, isn't it?
Now we are read it carefully.
Vladimir Putin put forward his plan for a ceasefire in Ukraine, telling Kiev, pull out of your eastern territories and the war will end. Why should the West trust you?
Frankly, I don't care whether the West trusts us or not.
Vladimir Putin is already the Kremlin's longest-serving leader since Stalin. The question is, what will a fifth Putin term mean for Russia and the world?
Why do you support Vladimir Putin, Mr. Segal?
I can't answer questions that stupid.
I've watched Vladimir Putin attempt to create a new world order.
The St. Petersburg Economic Forum was the backdrop to Vladimir Putin's latest verbal volley that Russia could send missiles to other nations to target the West.
Ambassador, I wonder, shall we have a quick word for Sky News?
Is the West right? Are you fueling Russia's war machine?
Swedish media, oh my God, you're not afraid of being here.
American journalist Evan Gershkovich is on trial here, but was first on display.
Russia says Evan Gershkovich was caught red-handed, but has never produced any evidence to back that up. Sky News. Get the full story first.
I'm James Matthews and I'm Sky's US correspondent, based here in Washington, D.C. Donald Trump, it would appear, is about to learn his fate. There's no doubting the strength of this hurricane as it roars through. Sky News. Get the full story first. Do you fear a fourth indictment?
He's from Sky News. He's from Sky News. He's entitled to ask me questions.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Well, let's get the very latest sport now from Sky Sports News and Raoul.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality. Getting more people, more active. Live life with Vitality.
You certainly need to have one eye on what if this doesn't work out.
Sometimes when you do get released, it's a little bit of a dark place.
I think there's so much ask and demand from academies. You need to give them a plan B as well.
My journey into academy football showed how some of the game's top players have made it through the system. But now I want to know what happens to some of those that don't. Coming up in this episode, we hear some harrowing stories from people who fell out of football.
Do you know what? I knew he was gone.
You just can't even begin to comprehend it.
Honestly, the truth, I'd go out to the car park and I'd be having a breakdown.
Apparently Matthew says that's 200.
I've got videos of him kicking the ball forever. All he was doing was keep up all the time, playing football in the garden, on holiday, and this, that and the other. So he'd love it. He'd love to play football, making sure he was the best he could be. That was his life.
Matthew Langton was 20 when he took his own life back in 2021. All he'd ever dreamed of was becoming a professional footballer.
The morning he took his life, he was supposed to leave work at 7 and he'd left at 5. Nobody noticed till 6. And they rang him and he didn't answer. Just after 6:30, I got woke up. I don't know what woke me up, but I woke up. I just knew straight away, I knew. I went next door to get the neighbours for help, and Richie, our next door neighbour, started CPR on him. Do you know what? I knew he was gone. I just knew it. His bedroom's been untouched for 3 years. He's got his Xbox, he's got his hanging up his Mansfield stuff, his Derby stuff, his football boots. Everything's as he was, but he's not there. It's like being in a shop and someone's got, you've lost your kid and you're forever searching. I'm forever searching for Matthew.
It's something no parents could ever imagine, but his mother Maxine wants Matthew's story to be heard. So does his teammate, Cayman Cashmore.
He was a great guy. He used to make me laugh all the time. I mean, I've got a video on my phone of Matty playing my guitar. He didn't know how to play a guitar. And he's there making up a song, and it's hilarious. It's all we have. We have memories like that, playing PlayStation, going gym. I always used to go gym with Matty. Me and him were quite similar in the fact like we just say stupid jokes and have a laugh. But then when it came to football, we both liked playing with each other, and it was great.
Are you absolutely convinced that his dream to be a footballer and
the slow deterioration of that, with the rejection from Derby, then the rejection from Mansfield, that had a huge impact on his mental health.
I think that was the big factor of his deterioration. I do think it coincided at the worst time.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality.
Thank you for that, Rahul. Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers and the press preview. Tonight, joined by the political journalist and broadcaster, Theo Usherwood, and the journalist and broadcaster too, Carolyn Quinn. Welcome and happy Christmas to both of you. Among the stories, we will be discussing this on the front page of the Daily Mail. The headline there, Charles, my heartfelt gratitude to selfless doctors and nurses. That and plenty more when we come back.